Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, inflation for the month of October 2024 increases marginally to 22.1% from the 21.5% recorded in September this year.
Food and non-alcoholic beverages recording 22.8%. These 5 divisions out of the 13 divisions recorded rates of inflation higher than the overall national rate of inflation of 22.1% for the month of October 2024.
Also coming up, Ghana records over 55% increase in petroleum revenue for the first half of the year.
Total revenue for the half year for these 3 fields come to 840,765,265.80 US dollars.
As dollar and Bitcoin soar as Trump wins U.S. presidency. My name is Darryl Kwal. Thanks for being with us. Details coming up. All right, thanks for staying with us, everyone. To begin with, we have a read of inflation, the latest inflation figures. Inflation for the month of October 2024 has increased marginally to 22.1% from the 21.5% recorded in September. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, food and non-food inflation went up by 22.8% and 21.5% respectively. Also, locally produced items went up to 24.6%. compared to 23.4% recorded in September. However, imported items saw a drop to 16.3% compared to the 17% recorded in September. Here's the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobdeni.
In the month of October 2024, food inflation stood at 22.8%. And again, consistent with overall rate of inflation, this is the second successive month that we've seen an increase in overall food inflation, as it increased from 19.1% to 22.1%, a 3.0 percentage point difference between August and September 2024, and has further increased by 0.7 percentage points between September and October 2024. In the case of non-food inflation, we've seen non-food inflation in the last 4 months hovering between 20.5 percentage point and 21.5 percentage point. In the month of July 2024, non-food inflation was 20.5%, increased to 21.5% in August 2024, dipped by 0.6 percentage point in September 2024, and has seen a return to 21.5% for October 2024. Food and non-food inflation on a month-on-month basis, we see significant variations for food inflation on a month-on-month basis relative to non-food inflation. In the month of June 2024, monthly food inflation stood at 5.1%. This significantly dropped to 2.2% deflation in August 2024, went up to 4.2% in September 2024, and in the month of October 2024, we've seen a dip of 3.9 percentage points between September and October 2024, with the October month-on-month food inflation recording 0.3%.
All right, turning to other news, Ghana's crude oil production has seen a significant return to positive outcome in the first half of the year as production surpassed that of the same period last year. There has been a 55.6% increase in revenue received for the period as a result of higher production, which was up by 10%. Now, according to the semi-annual report of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, the increase was influenced by coming on stream of the new well known as the Jubilee South East. In financial terms, Ghana received $840.7 million in the first half of the year, as against $540 million same period 2023. Chairman of the committee, Constantine Kujeji, explains.
Total revenue for the half year for these three fields come to 840,765,265.80 US dollars. And the breakdown from the various fields are also indicated. The Jubilee field, which produces more oil, had 248,646.664.31. The SGN was the next in terms of gas, especially 149,108,236 million US dollars. And then the 10 field had 76,520,109 million dollars. So that's the revenue for half year 2024. Now, by this chart, we are showing you the total revenue from our oil production since 2012 to half year 2024. And so far since 2011, we have raked in 10.69 billion barrels, billion dollars in terms of revenue from our oil production. Now, if you look at the chart, you will see that for this year, half year, we have raked in the highest revenue so far, which is 840.77 million barrels. So basically, if you look at it, this year, this half year is better in terms of revenue as against last year, which was $540 million. If you look at last 2 years, it was 731. Okay, which was even more than last year. So last year was worse, but this year is better, and in fact, better than all other years.
Now, the US dollar has surged as Donald Trump is now projected to have won the US presidency and will re-enter the White House. Bitcoin has also hit a record high, while traders bet on potential tax cuts, increased tariffs, and rising inflation under Trump's second term. The election result will have a major impact on the global economy, according to analysts. Well, joining us is financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Dogbe to make sense of the latest happenings in the U.S. Thank you so much for joining us on the marketplace. So the economy and securing the border seem to have handed Trump the presidency. How do you interpret his win?
Darian, thanks for having me again. Look, a lot of folks I've been talking to are in a state of shock. They did not think Americans would have returned Trump back to the White House. They tell me Trump winning means that Americans have become numb to character flaws, but he has won, and congratulations to him. Let's keep fingers crossed and hope that it is not as bad as people make it sound. Darryl, I think that despite the fact that the U.S. economy has been performing very well, at least from recent data, Trump and his campaign, they have done something that is incredibly successful in convincing the American people that they are all doing worse today than they did when he was president about 4 years ago. I think it's mainly the economy, Daryl. I think that what we saw is voters having some form of economic anxiety, which drove them to favor Trump as the candidate that they believe has a stronger track record in managing the economy. And you are also spot on. One other thing is the immigration situation. Americans have come to agree that a southern border is broken and needs to be fixed. And they believe that Trump has the ability to address that better than Harris.
I mean, last week we spoke about what a potential Trump or Harris win would mean for the global economy. So what changes now that Trump has won?
Look, I stick with what I said last week, that a Trump victory will certainly impact the global economy. The main watch-out item for Trump's second presidency will be his trade policy. And as I alluded to, when it comes to his tariff proposal, that may adversely impact, global supply chains and increase costs globally for businesses and for consumers alike. We are likely going to see trade wars, and I suspect that could even worsen inflation globally. Also, his America First approach, that could lead to geopolitical tensions and strained relations with our allies, which could potentially impact global stability and economic cooperation. On the other hand, when it comes to investment activity, foreign direct investment may be encouraged in specific sectors, that may not be adversely impacted by his tariff policy. And as you may already be seeing, the stock markets around the globe, they love a Trump presidency because it's considered pro-business, and that market activity is really great for the global economy.
Yeah, so the markets are rallying following the news of Trump's win, maybe except for the Asian market, where I think there was a drop, probably based on the uncertainties. So you get the indication that the business community wants Trump. Why?
Of course. If you recall, last week I predicted that we would see global markets rally if Trump should win. That is exactly what you are saying, because he's perceived as a pro-business candidate. And it is that sentiment, that pro-business sentiment, that is driving what we're seeing now in the stock market. The Dow has surged this morning by about 1,200 plus points. Trading of its own Truth Social stock it has been paused for a while due to an unusual volatility. So I'm not surprised about the reaction in the market. But here's what I want folks to be looking out for. Again, Trump has said that he will slap tariffs on imports coming to the U.S. Once that reality starts to hit the market, all of these jumps in the market we are seeing should begin to cool off a bit.
All right. I want us to talk about Trump's policy towards Africa, because it was one of the things we're talking about, how that impact U.S. policy towards Africa. Some people think nothing is going to change drastically. It's going to be business as usual. Your thoughts?
So, Daryl, I also don't expect a significant shift in U.S. policy towards Africa specifically when it comes to trade relations. But again, going by Trump's own campaign promise that he will slap tariffs on imports that are coming to the U.S., I think if he follows through that will be quite a change, and a challenging one for that matter for Ghanaian and also other global businesses that export to the U.S. We do have this U.S. trade policy called the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGWA, which was it's something that grants many African nations duty-free access to U.S. market.
Right.
My gut is that if Trump is really serious about his tariff policy, he may want to abandon or renegotiate AGWA and raise tariffs on African countries,
by the way,
including Ghana's exports like cocoa, gold, and other agricultural products.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point that AGWA is supposed to be renewed next year. So you can go on that point. Just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the reason why I mentioned it. And next year he'll be in office, right? So he would want to renegotiate that. He may even want to abandon it altogether. But let me also mention quickly that when it comes to foreign aid to Ghana, right, that would not be stopped. But I expect it to be less than it is today. Trump believes in this America First policy. And that may mean that giving less in foreign aid. And I also don't expect much shift when it comes to global security strategy, but he could also ask countries like the NATO members to pay more towards global security.
All right. And so in the face of this, as you point out, what could change when it comes to imports to the U.S.? What does Ghana do then?
Look, I would say we should diversify our trading when it comes to trading partners, right? We trade a lot with the U.S. I think it's time to start expanding our tentacles when you look at other trading partners in the East, Japan, India, and other countries. I'm not saying that trade with U.S. is not going to work for Ghana any longer, but there's a little pause over there, and I think diversification when it comes to our export will be the right reaction for Ghana.
Yeah, and this last question, not on the script, but just because there's so much expectation of Trump because of what people's complaints about inflation there in the U.S., how quickly do you think he can turn things around? And are people overly excited or overly expectant?
I'll tell you this, the expectation is pretty high, and my gut tells me people are going to be very, very disappointed pretty quickly. As you know, the economy is doing very, very well now. The markets are reacting to a Trump win, but as soon as that starts to cool off and we start to see the impact of some of the things that he's talking about, if he really does some of these things, inflation is going to tick back up, right? And that is one of the biggest things that folks have been talking about. And if that starts to happen, people will start to have buyer's remorse.
All right. Thanks for joining us all the way from the U.S., Dr. Wisdom Dogbe. I appreciate your time with us here on The Marketplace. Well, you're watching The Marketplace. Time to talk tech next. All right, and joining us is the lead for Eyes of Africa, Henry Cobbler. I want to take a look at social media's impact on the 2024 elections. Good afternoon to you. So let's get straight to it then, Henry. What role does social media play in influencing the outcome of the U.S. elections?
Thank you very much, Darrell. So I remember clearly when we had a conversation on why Elon was sort of trying to buy Twitter. One of the reasons I had mentioned is to have an influence whenever it comes into policy making. Again, because he's sort of getting into a very major part of in terms of manufacturing processes with Tesla, getting into space and all of those things. He really wanted to have a very loud say in the point of Twitter. And again, I had also indicated at the point that he sort of was looking into politics. He had already made a very clear point to mention that he's not interested in any of them, and I had to get in to now support Trump massively. And generally, him being on that part, I mean, it was very clear. And again, when you're behind the algorithms, you sort of see a lot of clear points. I can mention to you that, I mean, at the point where Trump had been banned from Twitter, I'm sure that there was some level of data that was sort of hidden away from us that could tell that, I mean, he was really in some level of point of lead, especially with the swing regions in the US. And so having that knowledge of data really gives you a thumbs up to be able to now influence the sort of elections that US basically has. And I think that that's why Elon had now run into it. Generally, again, if you look at Elon's point. I'm taking it from Elon's point because, again, he is a major part. And in the US, you have Twitter being the most credible platform for information. And so if you're looking at the social media part, anybody in the US would definitely go to Twitter to check with the credibility of information on Twitter more than any other platform. And so Elon coming in with that back-end access and being able to see that level of data, being able to directly now get onto the platforms for Trump and being able to speak out loud, especially with data. And again, you mentioned that both of them are businessmen. And so you get to sort of understand how he basically also wants to put his interest in the jump on political grounds and then again also pushing. And so I think the social media basically would have done it. Again, he would have also influenced it based on the algorithms. That would have just been one of the things anybody could just pick up and take it to court in terms of influence. But it is his platform. He can decide much of what he wants to do. I mean, Trump had been on the tops and in terms of the trends, that could have actually been influenced based on who's behind the platform and his ideologies and how he wants to influence the people. I mean, to go even out of social media to be given $1 million almost every time meant so much in terms of the publicity of that. So I think that social media really has done quite a good job in terms of who is behind it and how it's basically been able to influence Trump in the projected win for the U.S. in its elections.
Well, you make a point of in terms of who is behind it, because if you speak to a Republican, they would say, well, there's a lot of information suppression. by, for instance, Meta. If you speak to a Democrat, it will talk about misinformation, disinformation on X. And so depending on who you talk to, they feel that the owners of the social media companies also had their biases, and
Exactly.
seeing that most people consume their news on social media, not from traditional media necessarily.
Exactly. And in the US, I mean, being here currently, I can tell you for a fact that a lot of people rather would always be on their phones and would be consuming much of the information from social media rather than sit behind the television and then be on television to see what's really happening. Again, I can tell you for a fact that it's more much about the interest of these companies as well. So far as these companies are in the point of technology, they want to advance, they want to enjoy the new trends of technology. They would always go for which political candidates would actually be in favor for them. I mean, I can tell you that all the stock markets, the bond market, the crypto market, every one of them had made up its mind already way before I mean, the last day of the elections. And so if you're looking at all that data, rather, I mean, any of these companies are also now banking their hopes on crypto. They're banking their hopes on most of their bonds. I mean, Elon is on Tesla trying to just get some bonds up and all. Everybody, I mean, away from just being a fan or just looking at a political candidate in perspective, I think that they're also looking at their business and how that political candidate comes in to help or boost or push their businesses in. And so again, yes, there could be some level of suppressions. I mean, Trump himself had actually set up a social media network, the Truth platform, when he got out of, kicked out of Twitter and other social media networks. And so you can understand that he knew and understand the power of social media enough to say that even when he was kicked out of these major platforms, he relatively will go out and now create a social media. I mean, some people have mentioned that when Trump really wins the election, the Truth platform is also going to come up as a very strong platform. Probably reason why Elon would also now say that, okay, before I actually get Trump's platform being a competitor to X, why don't I just jump on and build with them? So everybody sort of will always be looking at their interest in that regard, especially for the influencers on the social media platforms, but the influencers, creators of these platforms, but again, also the people that put out some of these information. I mean, I had seen quite a lot of information. I could just see that they're just automated or generative information being thrown out there. It was so obvious, but again, these platforms will definitely let it go. Elon had been the preacher of true speech and free speech, but again, when it has to be in the interest of your company, he would always do everything to just get it.
Well, I don't know about mixing business with politics, but Elon seems to have taken some risks, throwing his weight behind Donald Trump, saying that the future of X was at risk as well.
Yes, I mean, it was a big risk for him. But again, I'm telling you, when you're behind the data, it's a crazy point to understand and see what really happens when you're seeing the real sentiment, when you're seeing the real tweet away from the bot tweets. It could tell you a lot. And as a businessman, you would always have to jump into politics at some point to influence the decisions. I mean, he won just by going to court just last 2 days or so, just by giving 1 million. And the court had mentioned that, look, he's legal on point to be able to give that value of money to voters. And that tells you a lot that he really wants to be in a point where policy in itself can be a bigger influence to his business. And now he's in bed with Donald. I mean, it's really going to just pave a lot of way for him to create a lot of the imaginary things which he's bringing into life. I'm making mention of imaginary because at the time when he had mentioned he wanted to go to space, it was like, you can't do it. But now it's reality. And so I'm thinking that he has sort of a lot more ideas he really wants to bring in. And if you're looking at his tweets, he says that welcome to the future, which means that he's looking at a lot more in terms of mixing business and politics and being able to have his way to get it out there. And I think that it's one of the things that is worth the risk for him. It's really good that Donald is actually up for him, and let's see what he comes up with.
Well, he tweeted with his famous sync in the White House, so let's see how that goes. But quickly, in a minute, I want us to talk about Bitcoin because it seems to have surged following news of Donald Trump's victory. What's the market looking like?
Daryl, when I'm coming from the US, I'll get you a hardware wallet because I think I owe you that.
Is in order.
I think that really we've spoken about Bitcoin in the last almost about 5, 6 years whilst I've been here. And trust me, today we're having Bitcoin at 75,000. Last week when we spoke, it was around 70,000.
Wow.
So that's 5,000 huge difference. I mean,
wow.
it's overwhelming how this plays out. And anybody who could relatively be looking at this, I can tell you, so far as Elon is an influencer in the crypto market, his superpower is in place now. He has a president in place now. Trust me, there's going to be a lot of influence. The Bitcoin market had been buzzing already. You're seeing almost all the meme coins, the scam coins, even the meme coins, all of them being up now. And it's really scary because, I mean, the market had already made up its mind way beyond the elections. And if you're looking at even the poly market, which was actually the prediction market platform, you would really realize that it was really going in for Trump. And so, I mean, these markets have a lot of data. I know that cryptocurrency and even the blockchain technology itself is going to be very big in terms of the data that is going to be kept with crypto and with the future technology as well.
Anticipating your return to Ghana with my coin, thank you so much, Henry Kobler, lead ICE of Africa. Appreciate your time. And that's the marketplace. Come to. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Headlines there, inflation for October 2024 increases marginally to 22.1%. Also, economy going below potential. That's according to the IA. myjoyonline.com/business. Thanks for watching.